Greetings, fellow Gothamites. Blue Dragon 5 here.
And Rohith Dhar.
And we're back. We're talking not My Adventures as Superman, but the HBO Max Harley Quinn show, Season 4, to be exact. So it's been a long road. We've talked about on the channel we've talked about the other three seasons and the Valentine's Day special. So here we are talking about four, and we're gonna broach this one a little bit differently. We're not gonna necessarily go episode by episode because, well, it's been a bit of a different season than the other ones, and perhaps we should kind of skirt around why exactly that is. Rohit, how did you feel about overall about season four?
I think overall, this season was such a complete letdown. It doesn't have possess any of the great comedic writing and acting for the first two seasons. And though I had issues and problems with season three, I think retrospectively, season three is a much at least a more cohesive and there's a sense of a through line, a sense of momentum. Whereas this season, it just feels uncohesive. There's no greater arc. It feels like the creators behind the show don't really have an idea of what they want to do with the character, and way that the show ends, I'm very trepidatious of continuing with the season five for my personal viewing. I think the way the season ends, like, okay, there's going to be some level of consequences, but I think throughout the season, characters, the amount of times in which I could just personally laugh is very few from episode to episode. Things that are funny are often things that are funny things, funny situations, circumstances that are outside of the main characters or the main arc. And overall, I feel like the fact that this is a new showrunner, I'm really hoping that this showrunner is able to improve upon their, mistakes and be able to put in a better season five. But if this is the case, if this is the ceiling of the quality, I'm probably at this point, I feel like I'm checked out, and I'm more excited to just see the Kaiman Hell Yeah spinoff that has the original showrunners of the first three seasons, and I feel like that show is more likely to fulfill its potential as being a comedic and adult perspective on the DC universe. And it's really sad for me to say this because the first two seasons are probably some of the best superhero television, not just animated, but overall, but animation and live action. And I think with season three, and especially with this current season four, it's really lost what made it special. And now it's just like Family Guy or American Dad. And that's really shocking for me to say this, but I think ultimately for any person, I don't know if you're, I've already seen the fourth season. For if you were to recommend Harley Quinn, stop after the second season. Maybe watch the third season, but if you stop there, you have a complete and well done story. And I think after the second season, it's been diminishing returns with like a few bright spots.
All right. So yeah, for me, yeah. So look, I loved the Harley Quinn animated series. I thought it was irreverent, thought it was funny. But it really felt like after losing it, yeah, right. I want you to remind me. So you're saying didn't we lose one of the showrunners on three, or we still have them both on
No.
three? And then
So the two original showrunners, Justin, I'm trying to remember the names at the top of
well,
my
one
head.
was Halpern, Justin Halpern, and the other guy, Schumacher. I think it was a Schumacher and a Halpern. I think that's who the
Yeah, so here I can just pull it up. Uh, to my understanding, if I could just pull up this information on them. So yeah, Justin Halpern and Patrick Schumacher.
that's yeah.
These two were the original showrunners for the first three seasons of the show. And after the three seasons, they went on to develop the Kite Man spinoff.
Mm-hmm.
and then one of the writers from the past few seasons, I'm trying to think of the name of the individual. They went on to become the showrunner for season 4, and I'm trying to figure out I think it's Dean Lorry is the new showrunner, but
right. So here's the thing. It really feels like
Sarah Peters. That she's so she was um so she was a consulting producer, and then for season 4 she became the executive producer and showrunner and taking over for Justin Halpern and Patrick Schumacher. That's it. Yeah.
Okay, so she's the one running the show at least for 4.
Yes.
And she's not going to be back for 5.
I mean, there hasn't been any confirmation of a season 5, but if it does,
well, it sounded like you said there was going to be a new showrunner for 5. So is that the case?
No. As in there's so the new showrunner came into season 4, Sarah Peters.
Yeah.
Yes. So and Halpern and Schumacher showrun the first 3 seasons, and they're now the showrunners for the Kaiman spinoff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So basically, it sounds like if they do a 5, she'll probably remain showrunner.
Presumably, yeah.
Okay. So that's the thing. It really feels like, especially after losing the showrunners, at the very least, them probably seeing kind of a Link to Kite Man by season 3. But specifically after losing the original showrunners, it feels like the show really has gone the way of the CW shows. Where, I mean, traditionally the way the CW pattern went is that after the first 2 really amazing seasons, we kind of lose a piece of the DNA per season that goes on after that point. So again, I can't say entirely with the information that we had the showrunners on 3 is that
actually. So do you want? So here's some interesting information. So do you know which episode she wrote? So she was a writer on the show. Do you know what you want to know? Which episode she wrote for the prior seasons? So she's written the Catwoman episode in season 2, the Bachelorette episode, the last episode of season 2, the first episode of season 3, the Harl Ivy, where they do the Eat Bang Kill tour.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's about it. And actually, in season 4, she isn't credited for writing any beat. Oh, she's credited for writing the last episode of season 4.
Well, that's interesting because I did not care for that. As much as I loved, as much as I liked season 2, I think the weakest episode for me from 2 was the Bachelorette Party episode. Again, not a terrible episode. I think of that season, it was just kind of a weak link. So it's interesting that she wrote that one.
Well, what's interesting is that with her episodes that she's written a lot of the episodes that are very like Harley Ivy centric in the relationship. So I wonder if for season 3, like for when Justin and Patrick left to, or they're still on as season 3 showrunners. So for Sarah, I think probably it's like, well, she's very much like has experience writing the like Harley and Ivy dynamic, and now it seems like for the show after the second season, it seems like the main thrust or the main center of the show is like Harley and Ivy and their relationship. And Sarah Peters having that experience, like, okay, we'll have her write because like that's just what the focus of the show is now, and it'll be easy to transition. And I just feels like it feels really bad for me to just think that like, oh, once these 2 characters who we've invested in and care to appreciate get together, the show just drops down quality afterwards. And it's not even the typical TV situation where like, oh, the show is boring because now like there's not much tension between the 2. That's not even the issue. I think for me,
let me can I get through my opening and then we can get into this.
Sure, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, this is really good stuff. I don't want to just say my stuff and then we're gonna. Okay, my point is, so just overall, it feels like, again, kind of per the way the CW thing goes, after the first 2 seasons, we kind of lose a piece of the DNA per season that goes on. So it's just like progressively more and more downhill. And for me, with season 3, the central issue for me that I could pinpoint for what exactly didn't work for me at season 3, and you probably remember this, is it all started with the Bat family. So we had we had basically we kind of built up the Bat family. We brought in Nightwing, and then basically all of our Bruce Wayne stuff, or Bruce Wayne or Batman stuff in three felt really off compared to where it was in the first two seasons. And mind you, Batman was a minimal presence in those first two seasons. I don't know, maybe that's the reason, maybe that's the key, but just the fact that I feel he was much more in character for those two seasons, even in kind of like a more kind of comedic light. Where three was like we overplayed, and I think we start this season. It's an initially Bat family focused season with Harley having joined the Bat family, and I was just I was just let down by season four, like you were, because it just feels like the spark is just gone. And I think the central reason for why four and just kind of like there's a hint, there's like the foreboding storm cloud of this in three with the Batman stuff. And I feel we just kind of like the ozone thickening in this season, it is just kind of like spread throughout the whole season where I feel it violated the rule of its own success. Where I feel the Harley Quinn show, what I loved about in the first two seasons was you had a reverency, but it was all believe. There was a believability and in kind of an in characterness to everything that happened. Where while heightened and while kind of farcical, it was all within the realm of like, okay, this kind of makes sense for this character. I can believe in a heightened sense this character would do this, or this is like in line with something they would do in this irreverent kind of like take on the DC universe. That was the thing too that the first season, especially the first season, really had going for it, where it was like celebrating through Harley Quinn. We're celebrating a long-spanning and kind of wacky history of the DC universe, in which is like, yeah, all these things essentially happened or have a basis in the comics, but we're just calling it out in an irreverent way, which is what I think really was why the show basically when the show was at its cleverest, they were doing that kind of humor. And it was kind of filtered through. Okay, this is Harley just kind of figuring out her own stuff, and just kind of like in this, and it's kind of like a called out version of the DC universe, which I felt was just a very fun playground that we were operating in. And it just feels like, yes, Rohit, absolutely, we're kind of we've pushed the believability out the window, and we've now kind of gone and we've gone from like early seasons of Family Guy to, well, I don't think we're there 100% yet, but it definitely feels like season five onward. For all we know, it's going to be current day Family Guy, which is never the place slash American Dad, never the place you want to be. You never want to be current day Family Guys. That's like the post Ted. Seth MacFarlane has now left the ship. You have your clever writer, your clever showrunner. He is now gone. He's just coming in, doing the voice, and he walks right out the door. He's not.
And
No,
that's
no.
especially bad considering the fact that the punchline of one of the nerdy guys who's complaining about Harley Quinn in season
Mm-hmm.
two is that,
Mm-hmm.
well, it's not funny, we'll watch Family Guy.
Yep. All right, and that brings us to the season. So we're gonna be loosey goosey here, folks. Just gonna kind of tackle like the elements of the season that, again, maybe the stuff that worked for us, far and few between as it may have been, and mainly the stuff that we have thoughts about.
Yeah. Can I just say two,
Yeah,
two things? So to finish
sure.
off,
Yeah, good.
yeah, sorry, to finish on my point from earlier,
Yeah, yeah.
I it's interest. So it's interesting that I can definitely see that as like why you feel the show's gone down. For me particularly, I think the show's gone down because it's not really it's forgotten to become a comedy. After the second season, season three was like, oh, we're doing like a little bit of drama stuff with Harley and Ivy. And it's like, okay, and the crew is just not really there anymore. It's like the Harley and Ivy show. And now season four, Harley and Ivy are the basically the main leads of the season, but it's like they're not really together, and there's not really progression and growth. Like season three, four, where my problems are, at least there was an arc. There was these two characters that love each other are very different. And throughout the course of the season, they have to grow and compromise and learn from other like normal couples do. And that was really cool. Like even if there wasn't much humor, I appreciate the mature way that they went about the relationship stuff. As for the Batman stuff, but just before that, but with season three, season four, like Clayface, Killer Shark,
Well,
Doctor
King Shark.
Psycho, they're bare King Shark. So King Shark, they're barely up like part of season 3, and especially they're barely even season 4. I mean, maybe King Shark is a little bit more, but it just feels such a complete. I feel like for me, over the course of 4 seasons, it feels like if you're have you watched Walking Dead, Dragon?
I have not. No.
Okay,
I know about the
so
Negan scene, but that's all.
no.
That's
So
all I
like,
know.
I want to use it. So The Walking Dead, you have like these core group of characters in the first few seasons, and if you dropped out watching it, and then you come back to it, there's a whole new cast, there's a whole new dynamic, and like what you appreciate about the early stuff isn't there anymore, and it just feels like season 3 and 4 are just completely unrecognizable from like. It's not like how for certain shows like, oh, it's the formula is the same, it's just done worse. It's not even the same formula. It's not even the same like dynamic. Like
You know
season
what it
three,
feels like to me? It feels really. What you talking about right now just makes me think that we start off. It's Harley Quinn's story, and two is it's Harley Quinn's story, but we have a no man's land status quo shift, and we're building towards okay the Harley and Ivy thing, which makes sense with Harley's progression. If it's a relationship thing, it's her breaking up with the Joker and her moving on. So that's a very great unilateral story and unilateral move for her. Three is the relationship between her and Ivy. The problem is with that you were kind of voicing is that three is like it's in this weird space where there's conflict, but there's not really conflict, so it doesn't.
oh,
There's
it's
not really.
well, no. It's like there's conflict, but there's not enough comedy. And like what you know how like in Harley Quinn where there's a dramatic moment, there's always the piano music playing.
Yeah,
You
yeah, I
know,
know, yeah.
I felt like that cue was so used so often in season 3.
And it lost its power because of that. So
Yeah, it almost becomes a bit of
I
a
guess what I'm getting at is there's a weird balance of conflict in three, and then when we go to four, the problem is okay. So we developed all this to their relationship, and we're bifurcating them, which feels really weird, given that's kind of what we've refocused the show to be. It's like we put them together and we're taking them apart, but they're not broken up, but they're apart, and because we realize like we kind of said all we need to with them, and we like seeing them together. We had a Valentine's Day special to celebrate this, but it's just if we're not going to put the crew together, if we've moved them into these directions, like okay, one's going to be moving to a status where the crew may or may not like they might kind of filter in now and again because they're still maybe they're quasi Legion of Doom members, very quasi, and Harley's moved in the heroic direction, so would not be there would not be a lot of crossover there, and because of that, it just feels kind of like, it's completely unrecognizable for
it,
what
it,
it was.
and it feels frustrating to me because part of the charm of Harley Quinn is the crew. It's the fact that Harley Quinn, she's a chaotic, really wild individual, and messed up person.
Who was
But
formerly a sidekick,
yeah, and
a
then
henchman.
but through leading your own crew, getting to be there for Clayface, King Shark, and Doctor Psycho's there. It just feels like it felt to me that the appeal of Harley Quinn is that all right, you have this crazy character that finds a set of like a found family, like a
Yeah.
home, even if they don't regard themselves as family members, like in any sort of like direct dramatic sense. It is kind of like a motley crew of misfits. And after the second season, it's just like okay, people really invested in Harley and Ivy, and now we're going to like maximize that focus. And all the other supporting characters are just kind of going to be off in the wind doing stuff, and we'll touch upon them once in a while, but they're not going to be like. I feel like for when Harley and I got together, and the crew got back, it would have been interesting to see how, like, maybe for future highs, for future schemes, like Harley and Ivy being in a relationship might impact the crew dynamic. That was never even addressed upon. And in season 4, like Clayface is like has like a Las Vegas residency. King Shark is doing his dad thing. Doctor Psycho has a podcast. It's just like, man, like I just feel like those are things that should happen when the show like ends. Like, okay, there's a crew together, they do their thing, and then at the end of the run of the show, you have them go in their different directions. And yeah, they moved on as friends, but they still have a connection. And Harley and Ivy will like go to Vegas to see the show.
It feels premature to do this in like another season versus like the final season. Yeah.
Yeah. And now, and it's just like, And it's so sad because like Alan Tudyk, you lose out on having a lot of Alan Tudyk's Clayface, Ron Funch's King Shark.
Oh, yeah, okay. Let's admit it though. King Shark was throughout this was in this season because they just love Ron Funches. So he got the most exposure out of everyone in the crew.
Okay, he had a lot of exposure, but I feel like King Shark always shines a lot when he interacts with the crew, and since he's by himself, it's like it just you lose a little bit of the.
No, fun. You're right. There's not. I'm just saying that it shows the desperation. We love Ron Funches, so we're just going to give King Shark some random bits, even though we have to really shoehorn him in there.
Also, Dr. Psycho, like you need a person on that in your ensemble, in your comedy, because you need a wild card character to make things interesting. And that's not even accounting for like we don't have Kite Man prominently in this season. Psy has been gone for since really season 2, and it just feels like this show just really does not play with the toys in the way that the first 2 seasons play with the toys of DC Universe, where it's like, oh, we're bringing these characters in and we're doing fun stuff that like gets interrupted by the crew, or the fun stuff of the characters interrupts the crew stuff. And that was interesting. That was really like fun television. And now like season 4, it's like, okay, Harley's in the Bat family. And Dragon, I remember, you remember when in that discussion I kind of was trying to defend, or it's like, hey.
No, I remember, yeah. You were very much defending. No, the Batman stuff's fine.
In retrospect, what happens this season, I have a complete 180.
See, let me tell you something for me. Oh, yeah, go on. What's your reason? What do you got?
Well, my complete 180 is because, like, Bruce Wayne, he's in prison. We hardly touch upon him. He's just randomly a DJ, and that's it. And Alfred just like becomes rich off of prison wine. Like, what? Like, for me, when I was defending against the whole Batman stuff, I felt in my mind, and I think I expressed it to you. Now we'll have to look back at that episode, but I thought that okay, for this universe, Batman could have gone too far, and he could have been the same mind with losing would not be with Catwoman to trying to get his parents back, and then maybe through prison and taking time away, he can rehabilitate, come to a sense of self, and maybe grapple with his decisions. And then when he comes back to the Bat family, he can come back a different Batman. But nope, that didn't happen.
We made him a DJ.
And it was like it was like
not even like a fun Lego Batman DJ. No, we just made him like a weird Abethan like DJ in prison or something.
Yeah, and there wasn't even like you remember when in season 2 there was the one episode that focused on, hey, this is where Batman's been doing what the crew was doing their own thing. Mm-hmm. Why couldn't there have been an episode focused on what Bruce was doing in prison?
Yeah. I mean, it worked for Kingpin and Daredevil season 2,
Yeah, or just like the fact of the Bat family. Say, all right, Harley Quinn's doing the thing. It just feels so underdeveloped, the whole Bat family side of the season.
Yeah, I got a whole thing on the Bat family this season. Oh, God. All right, so I guess to break it down a little, I mean, for one, the cardinal sin, I guess, overall, of like, this is a reason, like, I used the CW comparison earlier. With the CW example, there are a few exceptions to the CW thing. Very few, you can count them on one hand, sort of thing. Batwoman was just bad from the outset, in my opinion. And I like Superman and Lois. Superman and Lois just has like one thing holding it back. But aside from that, it's pretty good. And it has not really dipped in quality that really in the 3 seasons. But, well, I'm not trying to divert focus. My point being, there are exceptions. In the negative, there is Batwoman, which I really don't like that show. And the main reason I like that show is wrote out Batman in really stupid ways in that show. Mm-hmm. So we've kind of imitated that aspect here, where we wrote Batman out. Now, here's the thing. We wrote Batman out of this season I understand for practical purposes, but it's still clunky. If you think about this, season 3, ultimately, I think the choices were made with Batman that were made, which I don't like, but I think they were made long game, long con, to get Batman to a place where he would be okay with Harley involved with the Bat family in his absence. which like Batman in his right mind would never agree to. But if you pushed Batman the way you did in 3, and you had that big episode, which I liked until the very end, when it's like, I'm gonna bring my parents back from the dead. Until that moment, I was liking it. It was like, okay, they're winning me back on the Batman stuff, and then they kind of chucked it out the window. But the point being, you have Batman, you put him on an arc, you get him to trust Harley Quinn, so we can basically put her with the Bat family and do the thing from the comics. Right now, she's essentially a member of the Bat family in kind of this anti-hero space, which is kind of a modern idea we've brought into the show.
Yeah.
So, and again, so we've done all this so we can accommodate these sillier stories for a season 4. But turning Bruce Wayne into a prison DJ for like one scene, and we only check in with him at the very end where he just walks out of prison. He's just like, he basically sidelines poor Alfred. It's a big disservice to the characters. The way in which we wrote Batman out just for the purposes of getting Harley on the Bat family, and not really, they had no idea where they were going with it. That's the problem. They have no idea.
But also, it's kind of unfortunate that like Bruce was able to could have got out of prison, and he could get out of prison by just basically bribing a judge.
Like, we didn't see. Yeah, you're right, because it just feels like he could have got out any time he wanted, and he didn't even do the therapy sessions with Harley like she promised.
No, honestly, what could have been such a better done version of this is that Harley, it could have been a thing where Harley, maybe if she used to operate openly in the Bat family, she has to like do some community service, and like her job, and she's forced to like be like Bruce's therapist while Bruce is in prison. That would have been interesting, because then you could have had some comedy, some drama. You could have had Harley been using both her like skills as Harley Quinn and her skills as Dr. Harley Quinzel.
See, it really feels like we could have gone. I'm not saying this would have been verbatim because it's a comedy, but we could have somewhat gone a White Knight direction with it, where you have a very interesting Bruce and Harley dynamic in that story. Which I'm just saying, with the premise of like, okay, she would be giving him therapy like she said she would at the end of 3, so you could at least go in a direction of, okay, we would get to a possible, like, it's the big question of like, it's like every comedian has the question of like, if I get help and I get better, will I still be funny? And I guess it's kind of like, if Batman is better, is he still effective?
Yeah, and I think it would have been interesting to see the therapy scenes, especially if you were to contrast them with like how Harley interacted with Joker in the flashbacks, or even with Ivy, and then maybe like she tries to apply those same things to Bruce, and Bruce is receptive, so she has to change and adapt. And I think that would have been interesting because one, oftentimes, Harley Quinn has a psychiatry degree and she was a psychologist, but the show really goes out of its way to make her be like not a bimbo, but a lot dumber than she should be. And I feel like had the show gone the direction that we've talked about, it would have made her be a little bit more well-rounded and not fall into the complaints that some people have, her being sometimes slanderized or a little bit of a caricature. And I think with the way it is, it just feels like it was just a lot of afterthoughts. It was just like, all right, let's just put this character aside. We don't want to put any effort or time.
I think there's no excuse when you're if you were a showrunner, especially if you're a writer on that show and you're taking on the new season, doesn't it feel like, let's go over what we just did in the previous season and kind of work from there, versus like, let's just take the cliff notes. It feels like, hey, let's watch the last episode and then go from there. It just feels like there's a lot of track there.
Yeah, and I think it would have been interesting to see maybe how Poison Ivy would have felt if like. It feels weird to me that like there's not really much conflict either comedically or dramatically with them being on opposite sides of like good versus evil. Mm-hmm. Like, why isn't the Bat family trying to pressure Harley to like gain information Legion Doom, and vice versa for Ivy?
We did see that, but it was not really like them pressuring her into that. But we did see a little bit of tension, but really not enough to actually. I think we're no through lines. There's no real.
Because the thing is, the way they treat it, it's like, oh, we're just two people doing two different, very demanding jobs, and that's a couple stuff. It's like, no, like it's not just simple rom-com tropes.
They're in direct opposition to each other.
Yeah, and I think with how much conflict there was for Harley and Ivy, even though the show became more dramatic than comedic to my taste, at least there was like some sense of story momentum, some sense of purpose. And it's like, hey, realistically, for these two characters, they can love and appreciate each other. but living together, cohabitating, all that stuff, that those are things that you have to, those are growing pains. And I appreciate season 3 for that. And for season 4, it's like, okay, we got those growing pains. They're together. There's no tension. There's no sense of having to work through things, having to like manage expectations and all that stuff. It's like, okay, we have our two, boss girl jobs. We're like doing, we're off, we're new exciting directions, and there's not like a lot of like back and forth about what that means. Like Ivy in the 2 seasons, she's specifically one of the supervillains who is not specifically a supervillain in mindset. She's wanting to save the planet, and the way she goes about it can be construed as a supervillain way. But she's not like the
It's
Legion.
socially conscious evil.
Yeah, no, and I just feel like it just felt to me. It's like, man, I feel like the Legion of Doom should have been like a little bit more divided about her direction, and maybe instead of like doing sort of the tropes about like, oh, there's a female boss coming,
Yes, there's things about that I really don't like.
Like, I think there can be some interesting stuff with that. I think it would be more interesting. It's like, well, these are mostly villains. Like, very few villains on Legion do are quote unquote amenable to social consciousness. And it would have been interesting for Poison Ivy maybe to taking stuff from Harley. Maybe she could have brought Harley Quinn in and tried to like push certain villains to be a little bit more like amenable to social conscious. That like imagine like I'm not trying to say that you and I can write a better season, but I feel like in the course of this conversation and talking over what things could be done in this season, just building on the last season alone, this feels really horrendous the way this season turned out.
So a few elements that break down here in conjunction with all the stuff we're laying out here. So let's talk about Talia al Ghul. Now, I love me some Talia al Ghul, just period. I think her design in this show is great. I mean, in general, in general, the show has really good design work and the animation solid because I think it's Studio Mir that works on this show as well. I forget if they've done the whole run, but they've done a majority of it. Point being, because I believe the same studio that did My Adventure Superman is the studio that does Harley Quinn, so it's like under the same roof, which is Studio Mir.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, my point being, so I mean, like look-wise, Talia is great, and the idea of like, okay, how do we bring Talia in here? So the idea of like updating her with the whole like EWBC, the Evil Women Business Collective, like, okay, that's a way to go. It's a bit of a leap, but I can buy it. But I think by the same token, while they have an in for Talia and the whole like, okay, they're doing some stuff that's like interesting to me with that character. Okay, Lazarus Cosmetics. Okay, it's kind of funny, but I mean that kind of would fit with some like kind of what the Lazarus Pit, regenerative thing. If you're going to cash in the Lazarus Pit, I guess you could do that. And the biggest thing, I mean, here's the big thing. The thing I've always wanted to see that we kind of skirted with here is like, it would make all the sense in the world for Ra's al Ghul to team up with Poison Ivy, given what their goals are for the planet. So having Talia and Poison Ivy kind of have kind of a little kind of sisterhood bond sort of thing, and actual respect for each other, I love that, and that makes a lot of sense to me. And this is getting back to like, okay, these are the kind of things I want in my Harley Quinn show.
That's a good point. Also, and I feel like for Talia in this season, she's not really socially conscious evil, right? No. And I feel like it would have been interesting if Ra's al Ghul came in the picture, because then it could have been a thing where Ra's al Ghul maybe takes a liking to Poison Ivy, maybe considers her his daughter that he wanted, and like Talia gets resentment over it. That would be comedically, dramatically, and like the fact that Lex is
such. Could add some comedy too of Ra's just like, well, yeah, you fell for my enemy. That's not good, all right?
You fell for a rich white capitalist.
Yeah, which would be hilarious.
Yeah, and like the thing is like Lex Luthor, like I love Giancarlo Esposito.
I know we all do. It's a bylaw. We all love Giancarlo.
And I think he does try his best with the material he's given, but man, like I feel like the stuff with Lex really peaked with the suggestive satellite as the banner image.
I think it's the rocket. Well, is it the satellite or is it the rocket? I thought it was
a rocket. Yeah, rocket. That's shaped like
Yeah. It's
And
basically Lex's ego. It's shaped like Lex's ego.
yes, and I think it was great there. And then there's just this long middle where there's really not much like fun with Lex, and then it's fun when the ozone layer is like increased and like Lex is like Superman. That was funny. Like the
Okay, here's the thing with the Lex stuff.
cool,
Okay,
cool.
so in general, with the show, which we've had like 2 seasons of Lex, I like Lex's business tactics of evil. I like the evil business ventures in this world. I like the planning in that regard, and like the idea like Malcon on the moon and that sort of stuff. Like the idea, like the evil conventions and stuff, and him having a monopoly on basically all the Legion of Doom. Like all of that works. All that's good, and that's kind of Giancarlo eating it up and having a good time with it.
Yeah.
Now, his ultimate plan, as Ivy puts it, like did Lex do this all just to f with Superman? Like, okay, that's Lex. That's my kind of Lex to a T. That he's going to do all this just to screw with Superman. But then I think going to the degree of like he's doing like the weird rich guy manscaping, and like he has like cheek enhancements and like hair implants, and ultimately literally shaving off Superman's hair, putting it on his body I the Lex suit, like the power suit's enough. I don't think we need to go the extra mile.
I disagree. I think him going the extra mile because like the thing is Lex is very like the in certain iterations his obsession with Superman comes to the degree in which he wants to be Superman.
Well, no, yeah, you're right. That makes sense. But maybe it is. Maybe it's the fact of okay, we're having Lex do all this weird stuff, and ultimately he's just going to literally shave off Superman's hair and put on like if we just went that instead of like this weird incremental thing of he's getting like these hair implants that aren't very like it makes Lex look dumb, versus like petty, which I like petty more than I like dumb.
Mm-hmm. You could like I feel like that's something that could have been more like Max Lord could have been the dumb rich guy and Lex.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I that's
Like, if that
something.
makes any sense. I mean, I like
Well,
what we end up with Lex. Just getting there is a little like, man, he's really going through like a midlife crisis, and it's kind of painful.
yeah, no, like really, Lex is kind of always like barely holding it together, and I think like with the like, I think some of you could find the hair plants funny, but I feel like with the way you approach it, it's like, well, Lex should just be a character who the humor is just how unbelievably egotistical and far-reaching he would go to just spite or to mess with Superman or just really anyone that gets his ire, and that's
Yeah.
the comedy of the character. Whereas this is like, oh, like he just feels so inferior. Like the thing is, Lex doesn't feel inferior, but he would hate to ever display that. And I
Yeah,
feel
like Lex has an inferiority
and the thing
complex,
is,
but he's all about kind of like you're right. No, you're on.
no, and I think to your point about how like, oh, these characters are exaggerated to the point of like they're exaggerated but still believable.
Mhm.
Lex, the Lex that you and I can understand and know and appreciate, wouldn't do the whole like midlife crisis. Like he'll have that kind of like,
Like he's not gonna pump his ankles, like that's like he's gonna blow out his calves. That's a little much.
yeah, no, that's like it. They made Lex to be like I think the show, because like it like touches on contemporary topics and with sort of the discourse and people have about like real life billionaires, all that stuff. And the ultimate is like, oh, let's make Lex to be like how we consider a lot of or the top billionaires that in our society be dumb and like you know obfuscating and all that stuff. Whereas Lex Luthor, it's like you're not supposed to make him feel like how people view like current day rich people. He's supposed to be like he's supposed to be the platonic ideal who happens to be rich.
The delicate way of putting it is like Lex was like, again, the evil businessman of like, okay, like in real life we could never get anything like this of somebody with all this power, influence, and aspirations who could actually amass real world power, like getting the White House and stuff. So that would never happen. And
Well,
you know,
because
yeah.
I feel it feels like for me for this show when the way that they handled Lex, it's like they really try to make Lex seem like how they perceive current rich people, billionaires, and all that stuff. And it's like, well, Lex when he was created and how he's characterized even to this day, he's supposed to be like the Renaissance man, the like highest peak perfection of man that has the resources and is basically could in some ways be seen as like a reincarnated Alexander the Great because he's Alexander Luthor.
Yeah, yeah,
And
it's a whole
and I think like the comedic way to approach that is like he is so like I think there's plenty of characters that have such like sense of
The
aloofness.
way of distilling Lex is that Lex can achieve anything, but he can't fly. Like Lex, he has everything, but he can't fly.
Yeah, and that could be the comedic direction. Whereas I feel like for this, it's like they went for that. They thought they were going for that, but it's like, oh, this guy is just so insecure openly that
Mhm.
it's no surprise that like Superman gets to beat him.
Yeah, and honestly, the element aside from the like the visual thing we're doing with Lex is that I don't believe that Lex. I mean, just given that he put her in the job in the first place, and this kind of feeds into the whole the whole we kind of went the more cliche route with Ivy than we probably should have. Is that I don't buy that Lex would look what the rest of the guys would be, even if he's going to be a little like being the guy hired and everything, being even if we're playing a little bit real world, I don't believe that Lex would be that openly, dumbly sexist. I don't believe that he would be like, I can give it to the. I like the idea of Lex's ego is like, no, 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 you're going to do this really important thing. You're going to introduce me. I want you drinking nothing but tea. Like that, okay, that's playing to the ego with the whole thing of like,
No, well, but I think like I think the more succinct way of what you're saying is that like Lex is a perfectionist
yeah,
and he needs kind of the ultimate control freak. So he's going to use anyone and everyone, not because he's have any particular prejudice. He's just a misanthrope who has a lot of
yeah,
money, power. And the thing is, it's like you can have characters that can be very bigoted, very like prejudiced in the race. Like for example, like Zeus. Maxie Zeus in the first season was like a complete sexist pig, and that worked
yeah,
for his character because it's like. But I feel like for characters that have such, I think to your point about like characters now being way too comedically past the point of believability, it really felt like all right, can we get the most absolute laughs from without all right, what would be really funny in knowing who these characters are if we just dial them up a few degrees.
yeah. Let's see. So I guess kind of jumping around some other stuff here. So I mean, Harley. So Harley with the Bat family. I mean, one, I do want to highlight a few things here. So some potential that we had. I do really like Harley's bat suit. I do like that when we give her that look. It's a cool look for her. If we're gonna put her with the Bat family, it's kind of fits the personality and the color scheme. I don't know. I thought it was kind of nice. I do feel so the idea that okay, she has a pre-established thing with we've seen her interactions with the Bat family individually. Like for example, she's friends with Batgirl, and she kind of inspired Batgirl, which is really why she's on the team. Like okay, that dynamic is like Batgirl trying to rein her in a little bit. That fits. That's what we were expecting going into it. And on the flip side, I really think we did Nightwing dirty this season. I mean, look, we all saw the blood obsessed jokes coming. This is all in the comics and everything. We all know, yes, Nightwing. He's very, he's very well built in the downstairs back door. We get it.
He will be the receiving end of an Al Pacino in Heat.
Sure, he's yeah. So that's the thing. So he's literally the butt of the jokes in this season. But that said, to kill him off and to have a casket with a butt on it, that's where I'm
Yeah,
drawing the
I mean,
line.
it was
If I had
funny.
a symbol for what this season did wrong, I mean, really,
It's funny in the moment, but I think upon rewatching it, it's like, oh, this is just like bad taste.
it's
Uh,
bad taste. And also, Bruce Wayne's not even at the funeral. Alfred's got out of prison. Got out of Arkham for the funeral. Like, what is that? That's insulting on so many levels to me.
yeah, no, it's also like considering to develop DC Universe, like where is Titans teammates, or just it just feels like Nightwing doesn't really have much of like anyone besides the Bat family, which
That's the thing. Here's the thing when we do stuff like, especially when we kill a Robin, as we kind of address here, we always open up these things where it's like, okay, what has happened? Like we have him as Nightwing, but we don't know what the heck happened. We have a Damian Wayne, we don't have a Jason Todd, we don't have a Tim Drake. We do essentially at the end of the season, we do something that is kind of like filling in for Jason Todd. I guess we're just kind of reinventing the wheel on that. It's like what has happened, what hasn't happened. Like we're doing the introductions of certain characters like Batgirl in this show. It's It's yeah, it's a whole it's a whole ball of wax, and also there's an inconsistency too with this show that really kind of drove. It's very odd to me, and I only bring this up because of all the attention we were placing on on Nightwing throughout the season, with Harley kind of lusting after his butt to some degree, and not actual lust, but just she's glorifying him.
He's objectifying him,
Yes,
and it's
yeah, but here's the thing. It's given like the Valentine's Day special and everything. We've had this ever since I guess ever since the beginning too, because we had like that Max Zeus joke. It feels real weird that the show really goes for a lot of stuff. We have outright, like full on cursing and stuff, except the C word, but everything. The sex here's it. We have a full on sex scene in this season that's essentially not censored, and yet we have like a black bar over Harley Quinn. She flashes Ivy, and I don't know. It's like where like Lex is walking around, like in Flangrata, and it's like, why are we being at this point, season 4? Why are we censoring things at all with this show? It's like TVMA.
or
I just don't.
wasn't the orgy in season 3 censored?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There was the orgy is censored, and yet the show is whole about like we're no holds bar, man. Like we're going
I
for it.
I feel like that it has to be like the censored people, for animation. There's weird rules, and I think part of it is just like
But you
because
see the inconsistency, though, right? Like, we're gonna have like Lex Luthor and Talia like essentially watching, like having the whole sex surrogate thing, and that's uncensored
do
completely.
wearing a Superman costume.
Yeah, it's like we're gonna go sick and wrong with that, and yet we can't. Like Harley Quinn does not have nipples, apparently. That's the line we're drawing.
I think part of it is the like I think because the show, like, even though it's an adult animated show, it's based on characters and IP from a company that does appeal to children. And I feel like there's probably a thing where maybe it's not even just the censors. Maybe Warner Brothers has like weird like mandates that kind of just in case some parents like, oh, like I like kid likes Batman, and then watches an episode of this is like, oh no, I'm
And
going
yet
to call.
we have Nightwing on an operating table without the thong on, so he's like, that's fine, apparently.
I that the whole discussion about what's appropriate for and what's not appropriate in American culture.
Okay, but I'm gonna say you see my point though, but I
No,
understand you're right. The censors make no sense at
I
times.
very much like it's. I, those I really like to have a discussion with the people that get to make the final decision about what specifically they're prioritizing and why maybe it's like market research, or it could be just like particular convictions and prejudices of the individuals involved in making the show. I don't know, but besides all that, it's like the thing is with Nightwing being so objectified is, but like imagine this. Like, imagine if let's say instead of Harley Quinn an animated show existed, let's say it's Plastic Man or Booster Gold, a comedic character. Imagine if they did what Harley Quinn did to Nightwing to say like Power Girl or Supergirl or any female DC character. Not even a hero, just female DC character.
There would be a lot of angry letters.
Not in the letters, tweets.
Well, you're right. I'm sorry. Yeah, it would be a lot of tweets.
Like, it would even get past the storyboard if there was a storyboard. And it's just like, come on, y'all.
Unless you're Amanda Connor, you can't get away with it, it feels like.
No, and it's like, and I feel like at least it's good spirit. Like, it's one thing to like joke once in a while about like Nightwing's butt, but it just feels like Nightwing just hasn't. The writers weren't interested in doing much beyond him just being a broody guy. And the thing is that like for as much as like Nightwing is characterized as like a light, fun guy as compared to Batman, and what's interesting about him is that in some comics, especially in the immediate aftermath of him becoming Nightwing, he's still has kind of a bit of a moodiness and chip on his shoulder, and part of that's because he's like going through his like daddy issues with Bruce, and then over time he gets to chill out more and have like his own family with the Titans, and he comes back to Bruce and they reconcile all that stuff. But it just felt to me that's like, God, like you could have had Dick Grayson lighten up and be like the Dick Grayson we know, and he could have still been the butt of jokes once in a while. But it's like it just feels like Nightwing was never given an opportunity to like be intentionally funny or do things that are funny that don't like undermine the character. Like even if you think of things like Robin, like it's kind of like when we're skipping around a bit, but I'm just like when we go to the apocalyptic future. And
Yeah, that's a whole nother. Oh yeah.
it's fun. Usually it's fun in the moment, but then after a while, it's like I will say though that at least the Damian Wayne in this show is consistent. He is kind of like a snot roast Brad, and with the way the apocalypse turns out, it would make sense he would just be like an annoying middle aged dude.
I
So
mean, yeah, but by the same token, they have two things. Like, one, we're doing like a parody of the Grant Morrison, Damian Wayne thing, which in itself, okay, doing a parody, that's one
are we
thing.
even doing a parody of that? I feel like it's a parody more of like when shows go into the future, like a certain character will like grow and will grow fast. I feel like Damien was supposed to be more of that rather than like doing anything with Grant Morrison.
Well, no, I just mean the whole premise of like, okay, so if Damian Wayne, like, he had like basically had all the bat tech that was kind of like surveilling the place. So basically, if it was that, if I remember, like the Grant Morrison thing was like Damian Wayne became Batman, he very much was like very like tight fisted, kind of like totalitarian.
Authoritarian. No, well,
But
because
authoritarians are not
he's
wrong.
sold his soul to the devil, and he walks around with like instead of a cape, he has like a trench coat, and he
Yeah,
looks
yeah.
cool as hell. But it's like here's the thing: the show will have funny stuff with the main cast, and then I feel like you rewatch it, it's like and think through the lens, like, all right, this is just the DC universe that's just slightly a little bit more funny without going too full parody. And it's like, oh, this is kind of breaking. It just kind of it starts to lose the allure when that's the like common approach for every character.
Yep, and also there's a question of like, okay, where's Batman in this future anyway? Like, how did he screw all this up too? And like, it's a whole like, I don't know if he was frozen or not. If he was frozen, why would
No,
Damien freeze him?
my understanding, I thought that it was supposed to be the outcome of like Lex's ozone layer stuff.
Well, I mean, then you're right. I'm saying yes, it is a result. I mean, I guess what I'm asking is like, how does Batman factor into that? Because you have to imagine Batman would probably put a stop to Damien doing all that bad stuff, but
Assuming he
something
didn't die
happened to
in
him.
that apocalypse.
Yeah, like what happened to Batman during that apocalypse? That was the fallout of the ozone thing.
It would have been. I know you don't like the DJ though. It would have been hilarious if like Bruce was still like DJing and like he popped up, and when the fight occurred, he was DJing the music in the background.
Oh god!
It would have been. I would have been at least. You would have at least done seen Bruce doing stuff with his DJing beyond just one scene. Like, but also like, just God, there's just so many stuff to think of. Clayface and Poison Ivy like having beef with each other is like it should be funny, it should be interesting, but it's like you're just kind of it just feels like toys smashing in one another. It kind of feels like an excuse to just see a fight scene.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I like the cattiness with each other. It's the whole thing, like, oh, so you do have tickets to the show, and the fact that the actual argument is more interesting to me than the fight scene is the fact that, like, I sent you all those emails because you're my friend, and you didn't show up, and then you're like, F you, I'm going to give all the newborn shark babies your tickets. Like, the pettiness there is fun.
Honestly, I feel like it should have been Harley that should have had beef or pettiness with the Clayface, and I feel like Poison Ivy, like. Maybe she doesn't like completely appreciate Clayface's antics. She can at least respect him, or at the very least not care about having to be the center of attention. I feel like it should have been more Harley.
That's the thing. Harley's the kind of person, as we've established in the show, she would answer the text and everything. She would answer the emails. I don't know. I think it's probably why they went with Ivy.
I think she would answer it, but I feel like she would feel like it would. I mean, part of Harley's like she kind of likes being the center of attention, or like take command of the room. And I feel like for Clayface, it would have been interesting for maybe Harley to like discover like, oh, she really just feels insecure when other people are like doing well or having their own thing, and that could have been something that could be fun to explore both comedically and dramatically. And with her, like she's like instead of being the leader of the crew, she's now just like the lower rung of the Bat family. What is that dynamic like? Because she was like, because remember, she was like, oh, I'm going to step away from the Joker and be my own boss and beat him. And then now I'm just like one of the good guys. that would have been so interesting to like think of like, man, I used to be at the top and seeing Clayface doing something at the top, like that stirs some feelings of jealousy.
Right.
Whereas Poison Ivy, she's at the top and doing stuff. She shouldn't be in the place to be like having
You're right. She has no reason to be jealous of Clayface,
yeah.
really. Yeah, so let's see. There's that. Again with King Shark, we kind of mentions briefly just the fact. Basically, it's a continuation of the daddy issues runner, where he and his father, so now he's become the father, and that it's again just an excuse to get Ron Funches in there. Here's the thing I did like about it, though, and then we're gonna get to something I didn't like. So you know me, one of my favorite characters of all time, one of my favorite supporting characters ever. Really, I love Commissioner Gordon. So this show's had quite the journey with Jim Gordon. So I mean, from the beginning, I liked the irreverent take on Jim Gordon. That Clayface episode in the first season, particularly, was gold. I loved it. Chris Maloney, I think he's a great actor. He's wonderful in the show Happy, and this is very much kind of in the same tone as Happy, what he does with Gordon. So again, the first season is kind of the strongest stuff with him. The first season particularly, but then Gordon's three was rough, a little rough for him, and then this season particularly is like we had nothing in the tank there. I love the idea of Gordon reliving fatherhood with the shark babies. That was like the only real laugh I had with Gordon this season. Beyond that, I just feel really dropped the ball with him because we gave him his wife back at the top, and then we only to break him up for a gag. We're like, hey, back to work, and the wife, and basically in Barbara Senior, she goes to basically an ice themed orgy, which just feels like, oh man, that's.
Was it an ice orgy or just like ice dudes just like having fun?
I mean, I guess it's just ice dudes
Hey,
having fun, but I don't know. Were there ladies there, or was it all just ice guys?
no, it was just ice guys.
Okay, okay, you're right. Well, still, it's even more.
Well, I mean, it could be, but
Okay, my point is, she's going off to. I don't know. I guess she. There's a dirty joke I could make, but I'm not going to do that right now. The point being, she's
stuff.
What? Point being, she's getting a lot of hot water. Anyway, the fact is,
wow.
she's it's going like this. She's having sex with all the ice themed bad guys. It just feels like
it feels like they made her out to be like Nora Freeze. And oh my god, I want to say something with Nora Freeze. I appreciate her having stuff to do, but it just feels weird. Like you mentioned about how you felt weird about her just like hooking up with Maxie Zeus and all that stuff. I felt like it was done for comedy, but maybe it could be a thing where when she's a bigger part of a season, it could be explored about her difficult feelings and just her guilt and all that stuff. No, she's just like, oh, I'm better than everyone else, and I'm just doing my own thing. And she's like really horny for Captain Cold, and it's like,
I'm not gonna lie to you. The idea that she would, I think, I have a better time. I kind of a better. I think I can accept it more that she would end up with that she has a thing for ice themed villains like a Captain Cold. Like that would be the next logical person she would go to. But the journey of she's just had this girl's gone wild phase, and then she has this attitude and everything. I feel like if we could have just abbreviated, okay, she's mourned. She had a thing. She mourned Victor, and then we just kind of moved on to Captain. I think that would have been far more hilarious. Like, okay, so she went to the next ice themed bad guy. I don't know. I mean, I'm still obviously I love me some Victor Freeze, and I do love the whole like Nora Victor thing, which I always want to see explored more, but we never really have a chance to do it, and we finally do it, and she just moves on to Maxie Zeus. But still, I don't know. It feels like that would have been funnier had we just kind of cut out the middleman and just kind of went to this gag.
Honestly, if Kaime wasn't paired with Golden Glider, it would have been very interesting if she was paired up with Kite Man.
I don't know about that. That would.
I mean, maybe it wouldn't be a great relationship. It'd be kind of a bad relationship in a funny way, where you really sympathize for Chuck, where she's like,
"Oh, we always sympathize for Chuck."
Yeah, but even more so, just like God, this guy can't catch a break in love, and then afterwards he gets Golden Glider out. And
all right, I guess for a time, sure.
Yeah. I will say God. There wasn't much funny, but I feel like the funniest episode, the episode I really appreciated for this season, was the episode where Bane goes to Italy.
Oh God! So this is we're gonna have we might have somewhat of a difference of opinion on this. That episode's all filler to me. All right, it's just all like and already season I'm struggling with. It's like this episode doesn't even have anything related to our main plots. I don't.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's I can feel like that's kind of proving my point. Is like the funniest stuff is stuff that doesn't even deal with the main plot, and it's like that's I feel like the problem. Where it's like if I find Bane just like trying to be this like master pasta maker and having this funny dynamic with this Italian lady, like that's funnier than really anything else that happened. I bet there was even funny stuff. There was like maybe one or two funny things with Joker being mayor, and then he just like does complete 180, and and somehow his like family becomes psychopaths, and it's
I mean, the thing with the Joker, here's the thing. It's so weird. The Joker's Return of the Villain. We always knew it was inevitable because but I do like the idea on a whim. The Joker's he's gonna get bored with politics. He had his laugh, but now he wants anarchy and the family's down for it. Like in premise, that idea works. But here's what didn't work. Here's we do a thing yet again where it's kind of like we're kind of like spitting on the gospel of the bat, so to speak, where it's like catching Joker in the lie of like I killed Nightwing so embarrassingly. I don't think it's like as Dr. Psycho said, there's no coming back from that. It's like man, that's
with the sleep apnea, with the sleep study.
Yeah, with the sleep study and everything. But
okay,
no, the sleep apnea is fine. What I'm saying it's not the apnea is funny. You're right. I agree. I like the mundanity with the Joker. That's fine. Like him, killing like the grass guy. That's also fun. Oh, that's great. My problem is just the fact that like Joker like actually not killing Nightwing when he said he did. That's I that's the weakest Joker thing I've ever seen. Like I don't believe he'd ever do that. And right, that is really hard for him to come back from. He's like the villain, and he didn't even do it. And then we enter the thing. Okay, he didn't kill Nightwing, and there's no Jason Todd. Like,
well, there is a Jason Todd. I mean, Jason Todd was killed in this universe.
Are we sure about that?
Yes,
now?
because in the flashback, Joker's taunting Bruce Wayne. It's like, oh, can I kill one of your other Robins? And in the villain, the Emmy villains, there is Joker's like reenacting him.
Oh, you're right. You're right. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, okay, I'll give you that. You're right about that. Thank you for reminding me. Yes. Okay, so we have a Jason Todd, so that's good. But it feels weird that we're kind of stealing the Red Hood story from Jason Todd. It feels like
giving the potentially to Dick Grayson at night.
Yeah.
I kind of see. I see your point to a certain degree. I feel like for me, Joker lying about stuff like that, it's very much in his character in this show, especially to be not 100% adherent to the truth. I mean, that's part of the comedy and drama for the Joker in the show is that like he's very 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 rarely tells the truth, especially to like characters like Harley.
Yeah, but even so, even we catch Joker in a lie, does it? And to kind of like humiliate the Joker like that, I mean, does it feel like I don't know? It feels like we never really do something like that, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. Just like really putting him in such a position of weakness like that.
I mean, I just feel like with the way the show approaches the DC character, and I mean, I think it's probably just a matter of degree for us, and it's like I think if the show is to lampoon and make fun of the DC character. It's well within its rights to do so. I think there could be a certain line to where it crosses. I feel like it's crossed the line with some characters at the end of the season. I think for Joker, it's like with is it just how pathetic he looks and being found out to have lied about Nightwing? Like, what is it specifically that you find issue with it?
Well, I think overall is that the big moment of intrigue for me this entire season really was like, okay, when we least expect it, Joker shoots Batgirl. We essentially do at least somewhat. We do Killing Joke. That was an interesting turn of events for me. Like them going to that degree, and the idea of like linking it to okay, so he was caught in a lie about Nightwing, so he did the other iconic thing Joker's known for essentially. That that was interesting, but even that we kind of shortchanged with with Edgar. It's like, okay, so we have this moment, Harley seemingly is going after Joker, and then we kind of get distracted from that plot line of like, she's gonna kill him, and Joker makes a point, and then at the end we end with like kind of a nice joke with like Gordon, and Gordon about the torture like A24 style and everything. That's fine. It just, I don't know, like we're catching Joker in a line. We're walking him around like with like a dog collar leash and everything. It just feels like we don't know what to do with them. And it's like, okay, well, we can't for I guess for the character reveal we want to have with Harley, we can't have Joker be the culprit. And I guess the logic is like, even if he did kill Nightwing, well, is there really like a reason to it? And I kind of knew when Nightwing dies, like, it doesn't really seem like Joker's kind of moved because he didn't have a smile or anything on the corpse when he died. I don't know. It just felt like all sorts of like off to me. Like, okay, he's gonna kill Nightwing, and then he's not actually gonna be responsible for killing Nightwing, and it's just kind of coming out of left field. And I don't
Does
know.
Joker really have a modus operandi in terms of how he kills people? He just kills people how he kills people, right?
No,
Like,
I mean you're in general. Look, you're right. There's not necessarily a set rule, but I don't know. When like, ordinarily, I'm just saying ordinarily, it's kind of what he does, and usually like he kills people with smiles and everything. And just as
yeah,
if you're going to kill Nightwing, even if it wasn't with a smile, he would have everyone know that he did it. He would announce it, but even so, like he kind of, I don't know. I'm not saying I'm not. I guess I don't know if I'm saying if it was too telegraphed or not that he was not the culprit, but I just don't know how I feel about just the way we went about just that move period of like this whole like guessing like Joker killed Nightwing, and we're gonna feel a way about that, and then we revealed no, he in fact did not do that. Instead, it was Harley. It's even
I
the way we did that was a little clunky.
I think it feels for you like, I think, not to say you're biased, but I feel like for you it's like, for Joker and Batman, they're two of the characters in fiction that you most adore, appreciate, and grown up with. So I think with the way the show approaches these characters, I think for the first two or even three seasons, they were done in a way in which they were really funny, but still felt like the characters you knew. But season four, what it feels like is like, all right, we're just going to like put them in their place, and they're just not going to be much of a factor in this season.
It does feel like this season more than the other ones has been very much the pot shot season. Taking pot shots at all these characters just for gags, and it feels maybe a little like we're dinging the cherished pots. If that analogy makes any sense, it feels like it's like, guys, you had your laughs, but what are we doing to these guys at this point now?
I'm very much interested to see how much of what they were, if it's a thing where maybe they would want to take more pot shots at DC characters, and like what WP is like, no, you can only take pot shots or do this with these characters, and that's it. So or it could be the case where it's like, oh, like
We
maybe
shaved Superman like we've never. That's what I'm saying. It's like usually you think like Superman and Batman are certain things, but here's something. Season 3, the whole the big Catwoman Batman controversy, that whole thing. Like there are certain things the network or DC Comics, I guess more specifically DC Comics, will not abide. So it's interesting that we were able, they poked fun at them. I think maybe they changed their tune on certain things for this season. We're like, oh, you want to shave Superman's hair off and put him in a big position? Yeah, sure, do that. You want to go crazy with Lex? Yeah, sure.
yeah.
Why not? You want to do this, you want to do that.
It seems to me that what you sort of bristle at is that now it's like, instead of laughing with these characters that are comedically turned up for our enjoyment, it's like now we're laughing at them.
I
And
mean, I think that's about right. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that I can definitely see that it can. I don't feel like you would say it's maybe mean spirited, but it's certainly not in the sense of jest or joy. Or if it feels like the first,
It feels like we're teetering the line of mean spirited. We're not there yet. We're not at Family Guy levels yet, but it feels like down, I don't know, season or two, we're away. It feels like we're on a track to that. And I'm uncomfortable getting to that point where it's like full out and out. Just like it's, for example, like I probably mentioned this to you before. I mentioned to many people. I don't care for Teen Titans Go. And one of the reasons I'm not trying to turn this into the whole Teen Titans Go thing, but I guess what I'm getting is like with Teen Titans Go, boiled down, I don't like that show because it's like the skin of these iconic characters, and they're just not those characters remotely at all. You know, it's just they're complete. We just want to do a cartoon with silly characters, but we're going to get everyone to watch because they are it's they're essentially dressed like the characters from the show that we liked. People liked, or just in general, they're these characters that are like they're the same voices doing these characters, but there's just doing wacky shenanigans that aren't at all like things these characters would do. And I think maybe we're not so far removed from getting to that point, with these characters, but for much more TVMA kind of version of that.
Are you seeing the Teen Titans go to the movies?
I have, and here's the thing: the DC universe has the DC universe and their character and the superheroes, aside from the Teen Titans, I like how they're portrayed in that movie, but the Teen Titans themselves still feels like the issues from the show brought to that movie.
I feel like I may not like watching this show, but that movie, just like how far it goes into like they reenact the Wayne murder, and just like like Clark, like Kal-El go off to Earth and leave for the people to die. It's just there's just a really funny moments, but that's a brief diversion. I think ultimately what this show feels to me is that instead of just like, all right, let's take these characters and have them go on adventures that will be funny, but will be basically within the characters' internal logic and motivations. And now it's like, okay, we're just going to take this character, amplify a characteristic or two, and just have them bounce lines and like physical comedy off another, and that's their episode or season.
I mean, yeah, it pretty much feels like that. Yeah, I mean, then we have like a few they're throwing a few plot twists at us that are just like like, hey, we have like potato clone of Harley Quinn, and we have apocalyptic future, time travel. Yet we can't. The Flash will travel back 5 minutes for a practical joke, but he won't travel back to save Nightwing.
Well, it could be the case that if he travels too far in the past, then he could change the future and cause.
Well, look, ordinarily, yes, but I mean, do you believe this Flash would really care about that?
Why would you think the Flash doesn't seem to be like he seems like very broy, but I don't think he's like misanthropic or nihilistic. Like,
I mean, look, I'm just saying, just given the treatment of the other characters, that's what I'm just saying in principle. Just
was the Flash really like character assassinated? I feel like
no, he was. I'm saying he wasn't, but I'm saying just given how everyone else is treated, it's like I mean, in this show at this point, it's like, well, if they wanted, I don't know. You're right. It's something that there's no evidence to suggest he would do that, and there's a good reason why he doesn't do that. But it just feels like if they're going to throw the rules, the rule book out in these other characters, I guess I'm surprised they didn't do it with the Flash.
I will say I think there could be a funny way. I mean, maybe I don't know how you would feel about this. It'd be hilarious. Like Barry tries to save a life and travels back in time. Reverse Flash is always there to like bully him and like just like put a niggy on his head and just kind of like just make fun of him. That would be funny.
See, to me, it's really funny that we have had Reverse Flash in these Legion of Doom scenes, but we haven't had him do anything yet or say anything really. So
especially when there's like a time travel component, we didn't have Booster Gold show up, or even the Legion of Superheroes. Really, anyone that's like time related. It was just like
we name dropped the Legion of Superheroes, their time sphere, which I'm convinced that was Rip Hunter's time sphere, but I guess I might have my wires crossed on that.
It's like. Well, time spheres are just really common in like the Legion of Superheroes, timeline. It's kind of like having a car.
Okay.
Right? At least that's my, or maybe not. Like maybe it's not that common, but like it could be the case. I don't know if it's where like the Rip Hunter is like because he's supposed to be Booster Gold's son, and Booster Gold is what the 25th century at the latest. So it could be the case that like when Rip Hunter was coming about, like that technology was like. When it's in its infancy, and then by the time we get to the Legion of Superheroes, it's like become relatively more common.
Okay.
But okay. So for the future episode,
yeah.
I feel like the whole Avatar joke just kind of fell flat.
You right? Yeah.
And just like, man, like I feel like the writers themselves must have found it funny when they pitched it in the room, and then and doing it, it's like, oh, isn't really that funny.
I gotta be honest, like Harley came up with the name like Princess Ladyfingers. It's not. I don't understand how it's not really funny. I mean, it's a silly. Like, even if you're gonna, it's like, hey, here's a better name. It's not a better name. It's just it's not even a name. It's it's a description.
It would have been funny if they just like she blurred out like random names, and then Poison Ivy was like, "Why are you naming people from like parts of your life?" And it's like she's like Bernice, and it's like, "Why you're naming your friend from kindergarten?" And just like that would have been funny, where it's just like Carly just can't help but blurb names for people that she knows in her life. Dave, but it's like the coffee guy or the mailman. That you see, like that would have been like me doing this was like you see, I got a chuckle. That would have been more funnier than like what Harley did. It really feels to me like the humor of this is like, oh, this is what this is what someone who maybe hasn't watched a show and has like a bad faith like view of that show would have the humor be. It and man, Dr. Psycho's podcast, I kind of want a spin-off focusing on Dr. Psycho.
Okay, admittedly, in season 3, one of the things again, season 3 for me, I liked it. I just didn't like the Batman, the Batman
honestly,
really. But in
like,
I was going to say Dr. Psycho. I love the idea he had the Frasier parody with Dr. Psycho. So he is a doctor who basically has a podcast now that operates essentially like Frasier. I love that idea. We have like a little nod to that here, but we didn't really do anything with it like we did with the Frasier thing.
Also, like, I was gonna say, yeah, I feel like for me, it's for like the Dr. Psycho and having his podcast, it would have been it would have been interesting like for that spinoff to have him have like each different supervillain come in and like that, and then they would do flashbacks and like that would kind of like each weekly episode would be a different guest. So it's kind of like a episode.
I mean, that'd be a great supplemental thing.
Yeah, or just like maybe like for how like there's a Valentine's Day special, there could have been a special where like how like certain podcasts do like live recordings, like have Dr. Psycho do a live recording and then like his ex-wife Gigantic shows up.
Yeah.
For child support or something like that. It just feels to me that the love and appreciation, it's like, oh, like I love like imagine like this character doing this like thing that they would do, but a little bit more funnier. Now it's like, oh, I just like, all right, what's like the most surface level traits that anyone can associate with this character? Ramp it up to 20 degrees, have them in the scene, and move on. And it's just like, I think back like for season 3, even though I don't like it as much as the first 2 seasons, there's like standout episodes in that 3rd season. And in this season, like there's really not much besides the like Bane Italian episode. Like, was there any episode like what was your favorite episode of this season? If there was a favorite
of this season?
Yes.
That's a bit of a rough one there. I'm trying to think because I mean, listen, there are aspects I like in the episodes, but I mean, in terms of just like a start to finish kind of favorite, I'm trying to think of what the episodes are, just given the way we've kind of structured this. But let me think. Every time I'm thinking of a good one, I'm thinking of like the things that kind of holds it back for me. I mean, honestly, a part of me really does like the business conference on the moon.
Oh, that's my second favorite of the season.
I mean, if off the top of my head, that might be it.
Yeah. No, that's one of the like that and the Bane episode were the highlights for me of the season. And it's crazy though, like Steppenwolf, like it's like, oh, like this is some interesting stuff with Poison Ivy and Steppenwolf, and then it just doesn't get developed any further. And it's weird because like Harley was a herald to Darkseid and then backed out, which kind of caused Darkseid to be annoyed. And it's like, man, it's like Steppenwolf's not going to bring that up or just really anything else.
Yeah, I mean it is fun seeing like like him really impressed with Ivy.
I really appreciated the DC this the Steppenwolf design being a cool marriage of like the classic Kirby and DCU design
Yeah,
with
like but instead they didn't give him a stocking cap. They gave him like the modern day like kind of
yeah
horn kind of thing. That
yeah
was a good idea. You're right. No, you're right. That was a cool. Like they didn't just make him look like the Snyder version,
yeah
like the actual Snyder version, not the Joss Whedon Snyder
yeah
version.
or like in the comics like it's kind of his like he has like the horn helmet and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah but
Oh,
um
you know something else to mention too? I mean, I kind of like episode two, but they kind of abandoned one of the things I really like. The biggest Alfred missed opportunity. The one about Alfred, real quick. So Alfred, I love the idea of him mentoring Harley and her developing the idea like Alfred is one of those characters in fiction, but I guess in general with Batman though it's like there's never been a bad Alfred, and I think it's less has to do with the actors and the performance. It's more like the character is just that strong and that beloved, kind of like he's like the butler. Because of that, it's very hard to kind of screw up what works with that character, even if you do go a little more comedic or broad. Like this show is probably the furthest I've seen Alfred push comedically, but
but it still feels like Alfred if anything
yeah, it's still yeah,
like he's the like him and
he's the sassiest Alfred, but he's still
well,
Alfred.
no, but like he like it's crazy when you think like when you compare the Bat Family to like other media depictions and even in the comics, it's like Alfred is super consistent. And then
Yeah,
after that, maybe it's like Barbara Gordon. Although Barbara Gordon, this is a little bit more like what behind the ears because she's like goes in back. She comes into being Batgirl when there's already an established Bat Family. Um, but otherwise, like every other character is kind of a little bit more skewed. But Alfred's like pretty much like how I like if you were to take him and put him in a like any other DC animated stuff, like he would fit in surprisingly. Like he wouldn't
yeah.
be like the odd man out.
So I mean, look, on principle, I love the idea of what I really wanted to see was okay, Alfred and Harley having a nice dynamic there. Where okay, so Harley gets like, oh man, she's scoffing at the butler, but then it's like, man, I really like this butler. And then at the end she's kind of heartbroken, like, "Oh no, Alfred, you've committed a crime just to end up in prison with Bruce Wayne." Which in premise is like, okay, I mean, it's sad, but it's still kind of funny. But then the reason that he does that is like, okay, Bruce Wayne replacing Alfred with like Alvin, the prison butler. It's a bit of a laugh, but by the same token, it's like I fundamentally I don't like it when Bruce Wayne I don't like when Batman Bruce Wayne, usually Bruce Wayne, mistreats Alfred. Now I'm not saying we haven't had like, for example, Harley Quinn season two. We have Bruce, kind of like almost like a spoiled child, just kind of like he's needling Alfred a little, but he's still like he's not really like going against. He's not mistreating him. He's just like, hey, Alfred, you're gonna punish me? Well, you lift that heavy item. You lift that heavy bat suit up, go up the stairs, and the elevator's out. Like, okay, that's
So,
petty and that's
so,
fine.
so Dragon, I'm just gonna send a quick email to James Gunn. It's like, hey, James Gunn, my friend Dragon really would like to see Batman just like verbally berate Alfred to the point of tears.
Don't
And
you send that email? Don't send that email.
and Alfred will have to like take his own life or like be killed off by.
No, but seriously, I mean, look, even in the Batman, I didn't like in the moments in the Batman where like, man, that again was one of the reasons I wasn't crazy about the Robert Pattinson Bruce Wayne. It's so funny. Pattinson's Batman in that movie treats Alfred so much nicer than Bruce Wayne treats Alfred in that movie. Or Bruce Wayne's such a little prick to Alfred in the Batman. It's like I didn't care for any of
Well,
it.
I feel like not to say it was justified, but I think with where the character was at the beginning, you kind of have to him be rough around the edges, and the whole point of that movie, and probably for the next two movies, is that he's growing to be the Batman we all appreciate. But
Well, yeah, I know but again, it's dependent on how the next one goes. Right? So right now we're operating off we're off hopes and dreams. We don't know yet.
now it'll be just Commissioner Gordon that's just mean to Alfred. It's just like I really want to.
Stop texting the James Gunn. Stop it.
No, it's
Stop
bad
doing
reach,
that.
man. Hold on. I'm gonna just text the.
No.
Man, if I had a direct line to James Gunn, oh god, I
You'd
feel
be
like
in trouble if you had a direct line to James Gunn.
he would block my number with how much like ideas I just
By
throw
the
out.
end of day, he blocked your number. I don't care if he's my lawyer. I'm not answering.
Oh man.
Anyway. Stop giving them ideas.
Hello, Jimbo. It's your brother, Rohith Gun. I'm just pretending to be a long lost grandnephew or nephew of James Gunn.
How old do you think James Gunn is?
No, sorry, I correct myself. No, James Gunn is old.
I know he's got white hair, but he's not a grandpa.
Now he is not. But oh man.
Okay. And anyway, okay. So the big thing we should talk about. So again, Harley Quinn killing Nightwing. I respect the choice that it was the real Harley Quinn, not the potato clone that killed Nightwing. However,
or that Nightwing wasn't the potato clone.
Right. Oh, that sure. That would have been really bad. Yeah, if we just did the whole clone thing. But it's the way in which we depict that flashback still really bothers me. Not the fact of like, here's the thing. I mean, her killing Nightwing again. Look, the damage has already been done with Nightwing. So killing him at this point, is like I don't like it. I think we kind of did him dirty. But it's like, okay, if we're gonna roll with that decision to kill Nightwing, and we're gonna reveal that Harley did it, I kind of respect the plot twist that okay, so she did it, and we set up the whole sleepwalking thing. But the way we show that scene, it's like she seems very. It seems like it's hard to tell she's even asleep or when she would have fallen asleep during that scene. And like, is she like, it feels more like she's drugged than she is, than she is like sleeping or sleepwalking.
Conversations with Nightwing, and it's like, I feel like she's sleepwalking. She should just kind of like Nightwing puts her hand on her and she flips it around and like just goes off of instinct rather than just like be almost semi-conscious.
Plus the way in which we find this out, doesn't it feel like instead of doing a whole potato clone thing, wouldn't it? Because the whole reason she exists is to reveal this information. It's the whole reason that character exists. Doesn't it feel like, just given we had it like for a gag and we've actually had it for things of substance way back in season 1, don't you think Harley looking within herself and kind of conversing with the Harleen, conversing with the Harleen Quinzel version of herself, like the rational side of herself, and maybe in a self-therapy session, she like unlocks a blocked memory of her, like maybe coherently killing Nightwing, and she blocked it or something. Like I don't know, I'm spitballing here,
or like a really bad idea, which could be funny depending on how you pitch it. Is like actually Nightwing got killed because he got brain freeze from the Ice Boys.
Oh, come on.
That was a bad joke.
But yeah, so seriously, I mean, the whole thing of like it was like a self-analysis thing. Like,
here's my thing, just as an aside. Did you feel like when we saw Bruce and the DJs, like, is that really Bruce? Like, did you feel like he was an impersonator or a clone? Because we think with the whole like clone, she's like, is there like a plot line of like maybe Elijah Legion Newman's like secretly like capturing prominent people and cloning them and whatnot?
Rohit, sadly, no. I mean, I knew just based on how they did Bruce Wayne last season. It's like, yeah, that's him as a DJ. That's him.
Also, if Harley's clone body was still around and it was being tossed around among people, would that be considered passing the hot potato?
Well, yes, Rohit, that would be. It'd be playing a game of hot potato if she were being tossed around. But well, now she's mashed potato. Someone dropped the potato.
Yeah.
No.
Well,
it's not funny when we do it either, kids. So, all right. Anyway, let's see. So, all right. So we have that. So I guess so again, with our finale, I mean, overall, we go back to the moon, which again, I feel that doing that it was a bit of a retread. It feels like if we're going to go to the moon, we should only do it once. But I mean, I guess it makes sense. We need to stop the ray, which is on the moon still.
I feel like it would have been funny if it's like all the billionaires want to go to the moon, and then afterwards, like all the billionaires want to go to Mars. They just had something in Mars, and made sort of the jokes that comes with that. But I think for me, what really kind of was like, this show just does not have any sense of like grounding. There's like Harley and I was like, like they just basically said, here's our arcs. In other words, it's like we learned that we can't change things from the inside. We're just naturally outsiders. And it's like, when has that ever been broached or even considered? Maybe just like from here and there in Ivy's part, and really rare and never at all for Harley. Like that felt like it came out of nowhere.
I mean, I feel I don't. It's not so much that it came out of nowhere. I feel it was maybe like an odd labeling for how Harley was feeling. It wasn't really an answer Ivy gave her. It feels like, hey, I'm sick of being in the middle. The whole anti-hero thing. It's just like you're not in the middle. You're on the outside. It's like, oh, she just put like a nice label on really without giving an answer of like, this is, being in the middle is not bad. It's like, no, you're an outsider. It's like, well, I don't really know what that means, Ivy.
And then they randomly like Catwoman shows up, and then Oracle's like, well, basically Oracle at this point, Barbara Gordon.
Well, that's the thing. She's become relatively fast. I mean, she's barely Batgirl. Now we put her in the chair, and she's Oracle. And I like that Oracle's helping to save the day and everything. And I mean, I was that's the thing. It felt like a lot of money on the table. Like, okay, we did the Killing Joke thing. We have Joker. I do like the idea that Joker is like, I have these T-shirts. I made the print press. I shot Batgirl. Let me like the idea they made T-shirts is funny to me, but still,
I
it's.
I mean, the fact that they come up with like, oh, we're Gotham City Sirens just randomly, and it's like this is such a random thing.
It came about very clunkily, but I got to admit, should they do a season 5, which they probably will, they're do a season 5. I gotta be honest. The only direction I could see him going in would be a Gotham City Sirens thing. Which I mean, that's a Paul Dini idea. That's an idea that actually does track for if you're going to have these characters and you want to put them together. I mean, it makes sense. I don't know. Just given the state of this season, I don't know where it would go. But
Do you
if you're gonna,
think? Do you think, considering like Harley's interactions and role in the Bat Family, that like the Gotham City Sirens won't be a thing that just like falls to the wayside halfway through, or maybe the beginning?
well, that's a good question. I mean, I don't know. Here's the weird thing. You look at the first season of Harley Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
One of the really good episodes, the Bensonhurst episode. We go into Harley's backstory. Idea that is introduced in Gotham City Sirens, the comic. So I mean, I know it's not a lot, but just based on something like that, it feels like I mean, if they're gonna uncover any material that's gonna work and gonna stick and maybe feel natural for Harley being paired with Ivy, and I mean, admittedly, the Catwoman dynamic with Ivy, I mean, it's been interesting, but it's like not really. I don't know if there how much lifeblood there's going to be with that. I don't know. It feels like if they're gonna reinvent the show yet again, it feels like Gotham City Sirens would be the direction to go in. And it feels like if they do it, they have to stick with it the whole season. They can't just abandon it like or
And then,
sporadically when they feel like it.
and then if Nightwing shows up, like would Nightwing's presence and the eventual reveal of Harley being the killer, would that just like be the thing that breaks the group apart?
Well, I don't. That's the thing. I don't know if they're. I like to say refreshingly, maybe we don't break the group apart for a change, but
I mean, I get that, but I feel like for something like that, there has to be consequences
well,
to
a
beginning.
Nightwing coming back is going to spark something in Barbara, so maybe that's going to bring her back to the Bat family once they get.
Or maybe she breaks off from both the Bat Family and Gotham City Sirens and does her Birds of Prey thing with
That's
Black.
right.
Yeah.
Do you think would Nightwing be on the Birds of Prey, giving them the bird thing, or do you think we'd have to go as far as to bring in Black Canary?
I think Nightwing would probably. I really am curious how they would draw that plot in the next season because it would. You have to do some dramatic work with Nightwing and really flesh him out, like how traumatic it is to just be killed off by someone that maybe he didn't consider like a close friend. He might have, maybe he could have thought in his mind that Harley had an opportunity and just maybe was struggling to try to give himself the level of grace that should be afforded to Harley. And then would this happen? Maybe really there's just stuff that could have been done, and I think for Harley, like doing something like that, like yeah, Nightwing will come back from the dead, but he's not. But his state of mind is going to be very. I'm very curious if maybe he's still Nightwing in the next season if he doesn't adopt a different moniker, or I don't know what that like.
Do you think they go the full Red Hood? Do you think
Maybe
they just
not Red Hood, but I just don't know like if Nightwing shows up, would he just show up, try to seek revenge against Harley by himself? Would he have the Legion of Shadows with him? Would he have like his own superhero team, like the Outsiders, to tag along and like really, and like would Bruce be there to like safeguard Harley? Would he be on a Nightwing side? Would he
Well,
be?
yeah, that thing. Bruce Wayne was like he was breaking out of prison, presumably to stop Harley and Ivy.
I mean, it felt like to me that they were there to just.
I mean, do you think it was just more Gotham's on fire and Gotham's in trouble? I'm gonna get out of there. Well, he actually, he probably hasn't put together like who's firing that laser. Eventually, he will.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
When it comes back and it's like, man, what was the point of you being in prison? Like, are you much of a different person? Like, it's just like it
complete
felt
waste, just complete and
like
total waste.
Batman could have just been like he could have just accidentally like fell into a portal and then come back at the end of the season, with not much happening. Like, whoa, like I don't know, like the season just really drops the ball in developing the characters that could have been developed in different directions. And now in season 5, it's like you have to play catch up, and then like how much of are you gonna? There's gonna be a lot to balance. And I just don't know if the showrunner, if Sarah Peters doesn't try to look at sort of the criticisms and hope to improve. I can't imagine many people are going to want to keep watching the show past like season 5 if it's the same quality or worse than season 4.
It feels to me the smart play would be okay. So Nightwing is going after Harley Quinn while they're searching, for Nightwing and her Nightwing's, like his corpse's kidnappers.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to find he's alive. Batman's probably going to reinsert himself into the story, hopefully in a way that's going to count, and that way would be okay. Batman's going to possibly with the assistance of Harley, he's going to play mediator, like with her help, he's going to actually kind of get over some of his issues by proxy of helping Nightwing
Mm-hmm.
find himself again, or like de-escalate things, or it might be like basically the big daddy issues thing. They're going to kind of
Or,
hash it out, and like she'll be playing therapist to them hashing it
or
out.
or maybe like Batman puts in like not an APB, but like he puts on like maybe he turns against Harley, and then like Harley and the Gotham decide to run the run, not just in Gotham City, but like around the world, because Batman is so angry with like her killing basically one of his sons, and it feels
Yeah,
like
because I mean, he is going to find out about that part of it, and he's definitely not going to be happy. So, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's a way to go. But plus, you have this whole thing of like, I mean, Harley knows who Batman is, and she could. I mean, I don't know if she's going to do that information. I mean, that's the thing. It feels like
I,
doctor-patient confidentiality. She wouldn't
I,
reveal that, but
I
she
could
is crazy.
I could see her like mentioning that in her sleep talking.
Hmm.
Ivy hears it, and she doesn't say it, but it could be, but she might actually leak it out to someone else, like Doctor Psycho, and he announced in his podcast, Bruce Wayne is Batman.
That's the thing. It's kind of interesting that people have found out that know that Bruce Wayne's Batman and have not said anything because Joker knows. But that's classic Joker. That's the kind of thing Scott Snyder particularly has like gotten into. He probably knows. In this case, well, now we know he knows. But he doesn't care because one, it just doesn't matter to him. But secondly, he doesn't want to give it away. Harley. Harley again, you have kind of a trusted kind of like one, she likes him, but secondly, it's just more like a doctor-patient confidentiality thing. I mean, Catwoman knows.
Yeah, but Catwoman, I feel like, and even in deeper of her heart, she still cares for Bruce. Or
Sure,
even,
I'm just saying he's gotten really lucky. Is my point that a lot of people found out who he is, and he's just kind of lucked out.
um, yeah, it's
I mean,
it.
Scarecrow found out, but he got acid. He got basically his head melted by acid. So
Yeah, no, it's just it's an interesting situation to be in. I do not envy the people behind the show. If they generally feel like they can learn from this and improve on it and give like a really good season 5, I'm all for it. But if season 5 is not as good, I guess
I don't think there's buying it back with 5. If we're lucky, 5's going to be an improvement, but it's not going to be like we're not going back to seasons 1 and 2. It feels like.
honestly, I think season 3, for all the problems I had, it's kind of like in retrospect, season 3 is like a lot more. Like there's a like I can think to episodes and more moments of the show that I appreciate for just the comedy and drama. Like it's like season 4 is just real. There's just nothing that I can think to or appreciate. over the course of the season, beyond just a few things we highlighted. So if nothing else, Kaiman, hell yeah, is going to be fun. It has the showrunners for the first 3 seasons, so hopefully it's to that quality. If Harley Quinn's not so and so or bad, then Kaiman could be the saving grace, and hopefully Kaiman maintain his quality for how long.
I am hoping. I'm wishing nothing but good things for this Kite Man show.
Yeah.
Yep. I do. Sorry, it's kind of occurring to me in the moment there. Yeah, let me ask you this: what do you think of Bane's girlfriend? That was like another thing. I was thinking of during the season. Like, he's going after Nora Freeze, but he had like his little fling in the Valentine's Day special. I guess we're just kind of like casting that aside, or it didn't work out, or I'm hoping she did. I hope she didn't die, with her boots on.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, because we had so many horrible speculations as to how that worked, and I'm hoping she didn't perish. But in this show, who knows?
Yeah.
God.
Well,
Anyway.
I think we've talked really sort of the gamut, and it's kind of sad.
Sadly, yes. Sadly, yes.
It's man. I guess for anyone that's watching, if you want a good animated superhero show, watch My Adventures from Superman.
Yes. Watch it twice.
I mean, it's already renewed for a second season, so you don't have to.
Well, still watch it more. Watch it a bunch.
Yeah. Just it's great. Quality writing and storytelling, and
Love it. It's what the Superman we need right now. Yes.
Yeah, but anyway, it's so sad.
I'm sorry. There's a very minor quibble, real quick, in relation to Superman. I want your thoughts on.
Okay.
Did it bother you that we changed his hair color? Like we gave him brown hair. Like when he's Clark Kent, he's got brown hair. I don't know if it's like.
Does Clark have brown hair in season 4?
In season 4, Clark Kent has brown hair, and I could have sworn they also by proxy that Superman has.
I call malarkey.
Seriously, look at it. I'm not kidding. Clark Kent has brown hair in season 4 for random reasons. Now I don't know if Superman also has brown hair, because even in the last episode, I think Lex has like the brown Superman hair.
No,
I'm not sure.
Brown hair, just the shading of it. It looks dark brown. And the thing is, Superman's hair is also the same color. I think the way that.
Are you looking at the Clark Kent, like Clark interviewing Lex? I mean, does it look brown?
I think it's just it's really dark brown.
I mean, that whole Moon episode, his hair looks really brown.
But if you look at Superman in Harley Quinn, he actually kind of looks like he's brown hair. So it's kind of just
is that No.
I think it's not. I don't think it's that. I think it's just like an animation, brown and black. It kind of, from a distance, look about the same.
I don't know if color works like that, Rohith.
Well, I mean, if you look at the Valentine, I'm looking at the Valentine's Day where it's Superman and Lois has like much more blacker hair than Superman. Superman has brown hair. So if anything, it feels like that was always just how Superman's hair is a little bit more.
You know what? I'll give you. You know what it might be? It might just be it's been a while since I've watched, like the original seasons, like the first 2 seasons of Harley Quinn. It's been a while since I've seen, because you remember half of season, the majority of season 2, he's like sealed in a book, so we haven't really seen him in a while.
Yeah.
So maybe, you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe that's it. I could have sworn he had black hair, because I'm trying to think back to that episode where I think it was episode 4 of season 1, like the whole Damian Wayne looking for an arch nemesis and everything. I forget if that was the first introduction of Superman or not in that, but either way, but you're right. I don't know. It's kind of weird seeing brown hair being. Here's the thing: there's Superman with brown hair, which I mean, if that distance thing makes, if that tracks, there's that. But seeing is like this. This might have been the first time we saw him as Clark Kent. And it was just, I don't know, it really kind of jumped out to me. I don't know if it's because of just the fact that we have Superman on the brain because of My Adventures of Superman or not. It's just kind of like, man, Superman has browner hair than usual. You don't see that every day.
Yeah, I think it's like for a reason. I think it's probably in color inconsistency, because the first 2 seasons it looks like black hair. But I think the Valentine's Day special, I don't know if season 3, if you see Superman, he has black hair or just really dark brown hair?
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So it's season 4 of Harley Quinn. It's not great. It's not great. It's definitely not as good as season 3, and definitely not as good as the first 2 seasons. It's kind of it's a shame, but it's. I mean, there's hope it's gonna balance out with the future seasons, but I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I think again, if I think they got to rein it back. That we got to portray these characters in a way that feels like still in the realm of like what these characters would do, even if it is going to be heightened and kind of like addressing like, yeah, we're in a world of comics. In a world of comics, a lot of history happens, and a lot of history, with God knows how many writers and artists, taking the helms. A lot of stuff's going to happen. Some good, some bad, and wacky. But depending on it's kind of like a been there, done that. Everything's happened, so it's calling out the fact that everything's happened. You have a lot of fun meta things you can kind of do with that. But in this case, it feels like we've just been like, hey, let's just do a comedy show, but with characters that people recognize, which is kind of an epidemic in Hollywood and kind of animation and everything. Well, it's more in just kind of media right now. We just keep like, hey, let's just do funny, irreverent things with characters we recognize and kind of go off the reservation, just because people are going to watch it. We know they're going to watch it, but we got to do this sort of thing with purpose, kids. We should do it in a way that celebrates these characters, and celebrates these legacies, but still, like that, kind of elbowing them a little bit, knocking them in the ribs a little bit, but not taking pot shots at them. Maybe it'll get back to that. Maybe it won't. Only time will tell.
Foster Maker.
Goodbye, folks.